Hi, it's David Avrin with the Customer Experience Advantage podcast. You know, the work environment has changed dramatically in recent years, and not just the work from home options that exploded during COVID, but this whole breaking down of walls in the traditional office, the community workspaces. But with all that we've gained in creating these open collaborative working environments, we've also lost venues for private conversations and interruption-free workspaces, especially while we are traveling on the road. Today on the Customer Experience Advantage podcast, I'm talking to Jeremy Jennings. He's the co-founder, co-CEO of Jabbrrbox, private workspaces. Great technology, demonstrated need, phenomenal presentation. This is really cool. David Avrin, back in 20 seconds.
You're listening to the Customer Experience Advantage podcast with David Avrin, featuring candid conversations with some of the most influential leaders in business today. Sit back and listen in, or feel free to watch the video version online. This is the Customer Experience Advantage podcast, and here's David Avrin.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I get the great opportunity to interview not only some great leaders, but with some great products and innovations. And Jeremy and I met about a year and a half ago. I was keynoting at the Airport Experience Conference. A lot of the retailers and everybody sort of within this city in a structure that airports have become. And what I loved in my conversation with him was learning about Jabbrrbox, which was this opportunity. It's almost like the modern phone booth, but more, or on steroids. And I hate people that say it's anything on steroids, but it's kind of that. And so I wanted to revisit it because, boy, we've learned so much during COVID of what works, what doesn't, what we're missing. And I think their timing is spot on. I think this is a product for its time. I think the need is profound. So Jeremy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate the introduction. And growing up in the days of Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, and A-Rod, I guess Jabbrrbox with a couple of asterisks after it may not be such a bad thing.
Yeah, there you go. Real quick background on Jeremy. He is a seasoned executive turned entrepreneur, 20 years experience in the fashion, retail, commercial interiors industry. During his career, he's led high productive teams focused on building brand strategy, multi-channel platforms, client relationships, blah, 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 but it's relevant and important. No, I mean, it's all really important, but what it means is, you know what you're doing. I mean, there's no shortage of people with great ideas, or wouldn't it be cool if, or I think we really, there'd be a great market, but not everybody can bring it to fruition. And so yourself and your partner, you've not only done it, but you've done it in a cool way. I would encourage people while you're listening to this or watching this, go to the website. Now, Jabbrrbox, it's BBRR. So JABBRRBOX.com, correct? Look it up.
Say to people, actually, I remember checking into a hotel in Chicago, and I said, it's Jeremy at Jabbrrbox.com. And she's like, Jabber what? And she's like, is there an E in there? I'm like, J-A, Bobby Brown, rock and roll, B-O-X.
Yeah, there you go. There's only no E. So Jabbrrbox. I only say that because when you really understand the physical presentation of what you have created, this upholstered, technological, advanced, talk to me. I guess it's always best to go back. Talk to me about the origins. The best products are meeting a specific need, a response to a situation. Give me the backstory on this.
Yeah, I'll get a quick origin story. So my partner and co-founder, co-CEO, Brian Hackathorn, actually the impetus of the idea, the modern day phone booth, was his idea, and it came out of need. His background is design and build and construction, working in commercial interiors for 20 years. And his last role was a principal at Studios Architecture in New York City. He was in between locations. He had an office down in Soho. He was on his way to a client in the Grace Building in Bryant Park. And he had a couple hours to kill, was sitting outside Grand Central and went inside it's called a POPS. It's a privately owned public space, and it's basically an arcade outside the building. And he was just sitting there, and he's just, watching the construction worker look for power, seeing a business person like on the phone, saw some kind of, we like to think it was an accountant, but someone with like papers strewn about, and he just wrote down. He goes, "We need a place to do all this while we're on the go. We need a modern day phone booth." He literally wrote it in his. He had an Apple phone at the time. Now we're for Samsung based, but he had an Apple phone at the time. And we had lunch a couple weeks later. And Brian and I have known each other for 15 plus years. And I've always really believed in the philosophy that it's a James Altucher thing, that your mind is a muscle and you have to always work it. I used to write down 10 ideas a day. And today I try to execute on 10 ideas a day, but I think, and I would meet up with Brian and we literally go down my list. I'm like, it's like Uber for this. And what do you think about that? And he's like, you know what? I have an idea for you. And I said, okay, I'm ready. He goes, we need a modern day phone booth. I'm like, okay, tell me a little bit more. And he basically wasn't quite as eloquent as this, but he said, technology has facilitated mobility and we can work when, where, and how we want, but there's not a great, elegant, or efficient response. The infrastructure isn't there. And it just got me kind of humming. So I remember taking the train home that day and I wrote out a couple notes, and I like to refer to that as a business plan today, but it truly was probably a cocktail napkin.
Right.
And I wrote down Zipcar for space. And it was this idea of on-demand, reservable, it was community-based. You'd have, you wanted that community because you wanted people to buy into what you were doing and have some level of accountability and responsibility, like leave it the way you found it. You wanted this idea of short-term, fractional, flexible, accessible wherever you needed it. And that was truly, I think I sent him this note, and then he sent back, he goes, you want to do it together? And that was the birth of Jabbrrbox.
And you were working in commercial interiors at the time.
At the time I had a consulting business actually,
okay.
And this probably informed it. So coming from commercial interiors prior, I was a principal of a dealership in New York City, had consulted with a couple of companies and started consulting primarily around flex space, working with some of the largest flex operators in the world, setting up operations in other countries. And I think that really informed my kind of Zipcar for space idea around flexibility, accessibility, community driven. And it kind of all, being a consultant at the time, and this, like, I would be walking down the street and I would get pinged by a CFO to jump on a call. And,
right.
And where would you go? Like, I mean, honestly, you're coming out of the subway in downtown Manhattan. Where do you go to get on a call? I remember this truly happened. I remember coming out of like the Green Line downtown on Wall Street, and I got a text from a CFO saying, I need to talk to you about your proposal. Pretty big deal at the time. I'm like, I have a family to feed, I got to jump on this call. And I ran into a Starbucks because obviously that's where you go. Well, between the music pumping, the coffee beans grinding, I couldn't take it there. So I immediately ran to a commercial office building, to a lobby space. The security guard looked at me and said, sir, who are you visiting? And I said, I'm not visiting. I just need to jump on a call. He goes, sorry, this is private property. You can't take your call here. I ended up taking the call, walking around a Dwayne Reed, which is, basically
a drugstore. Yeah.
Yes. Pretending to look at merchandise while on the phone, like waving off, the associate. And needless to say, clearly I closed the deal, which was number one. But number two, I'm like, there has to be something better. And that was, part of that thought process. Like, the way we work has changed. And this is 5 years ago, right? This is technology's shifted a ton, but back then it was like, okay, mobility matters, and we were targeting like mobile workers and everything else, and we didn't really think of ourselves as like a future work platform. But I mean, now, take COVID, we'll talk about COVID I'm sure in a second, but I mean, just the fast forward future of work now, and it's this idea that the great work from home experiment for the past 15, 16 months, it's obviously not sustainable.
Well, at least not in large part, but let's go back a little bit just to describe for those who are listening or watching this. The physical structure is one part, right? That's the need. It's like, where can we go for a quiet space to close a door and have a conversation, right? In the workplaces, it's open, it's converted to open offices, bullpens, collaborative workspaces, which is great. But on the road, it's exactly what you described. It's not a unique scenario that we're always looking for somewhere quiet. I like go behind a pillar. I go in a conference to try and go down into a bathroom or something else, and then you get a flush in the background. So
the echo is kind of weird.
Right. It's like, great if you're in a barbershop quartet. It works great in the bathroom, but the physical structure is part of it. When you were talking about creating the technology to facilitate the reservation system, the
Yeah.
ecosystem behind that. That's
So-
the part that's really unique and fascinating and growing. And tell us about that.
So let me give you kind of the out of the box, the way that we describe ourselves. We say Jabbrrbox is a technology-enabled network of on-demand micro workspaces that are deployed in public spaces to give people the privacy and tools to work and much more. And that's kind of a mouthful, but it truly encapsulates what we're doing. So we do deploy a physical workspace, and most people would look at it and say it's a phone booth.
No,
certainly
but
we
to be fair,
Sure.
it's elegant, it's modern, it's sleek, it's a great
Thank you.
look. And a variety of
I'm blushing, and Brian
Yeah.
Brian designed this thing, and it's beautiful. The design is award winning. We're extremely proud of the way it looked. It was form and function and aesthetics matter. I think that the experience is a lot more. There's the digital experience. There's the way when people see something, the reason we dress the way we do, the reason that we have the tools and have the brands around us, and all the different types of earbuds and phones. I mean, we're buying $1,000 phones. Yeah, they work, but there's a $300 phone that works just as good as the $1,200 phone.
Right.
Brands
But
matter.
those who are traveling or working, there are certain things we need within that space. Describe the interior before you talk
Sure.
about the technology.
Yeah, so the interior, I mean, the footprint is about 4 foot by 4 foot by 8.5 feet tall. It's an all steel construction on the exterior. It's a powder coat paint. The box is fairly rectilinear, but there's some design detail into the box. There's a glass door. It's solid all the way around. There's a glass door that has a privacy strip across the front of it, so you can, when you look in, someone can see the top of your head or 2 feet at the bottom, but you do have a good amount of visual privacy.
Yeah,
You're
but there's
private.
also there's also the technology plugins and all of that.
Yeah, sure. So the inside is really, it was designed to be very soothing and comfortable. You go in, there's a 24-inch touchscreen with camera, speaker, microphone built in. There's you have convenient power. You have a work surface. You have a seated banquette that's truly comfortable. It fits the 98th percentile. So you can sit in there for a couple of hours and actually be very comfortable. There's some space. You're not cramped. There's when we designed it, the height of it. You go in. It's one of the first things people sit down inside it and they say, "Wow, I thought it was going to be like claustrophobic." I mean, just from looking at it, it's a good size. But you look at it, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to go inside something." In reality, it's been designed so it feels spacious, and we talk about being luxurious and comfortable and plush. You have the technology on the inside, so it's a full IoT box. And what that means is that, not only do you have the features that I just talked about, but you have this ability, it's unattended, it's remotely monitored, managed, and maintained. From our back end, we can tell, if something is down, we can remotely log in, we can pop the door, we can reset, reboot the box. The user has control over their environment. They can assign the light to a soothing blue or a bright, something bright and like feeling like alive. We integrate with your apps so that if you're doing a video call inside, you have front forward lights, so you're lit up. Like you look, it's almost like a studio effect.
Yeah,
So
it almost does a disservice to call it a modern day phone booth, because it really is a modern day office on demand.
It's a tool. It's a tool that enables you. I mean, we talk about a technology enabled pod that empowers people. It allows you to do what you need to do. The technology behind it, and we're talking about the physical hardware, and we can get in, as deep as you want around this access control. Do you book it?
Well, I think it's more of how does it pertain? How does it work, and how do we, as consumers, access a service that solves a specific need? We've all been in the airport. We've even been in the United Club or whatever else, and somebody talked. I told him we're not available. It's like, dude, like, shut up. Well, it's even worse because when they're on their ear pods or something else.
Oh, it's gonna be awful now with Zoom.
Well, they look right. And they look like they're either schizophrenic because they're talking to nobody or talking to the wall. But the point is, as annoying as they are, they need somewhere to have a private conversation. And that's getting harder and harder to find. So the technology allows us to reserve that space, right? And connect with you in privacy.
You touch on many things. I mean, it's funny because when we first had this concept, even before we brought to market, we thought we were solving for technology and power and data and, you know, and all these things that we provide. The reality is, you know, what we've solved for is privacy and civility. The ability that, you know, our users that have given us feedback around, you know, I just needed to get away. Bless you. For 30 minutes, I just needed to get away.
I muted that. Did I mute that sneeze or not? I think
you know,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's the visual and the audio.
So you were
right?
talking privacy and civility. Yeah. Go ahead.
Privacy and civility is what we're really solving for. We give you the technology tools that you'll need, and there's 3 different modalities and experiences that we offer inside the box: productivity, privacy, and wellness. And we give you the tools that empower those experiences. But you were asking about, like, as a consumer access, which kind of going back to the origin story a little bit, you know, how do you find it? How do you get into the box? We wanted to democratize access. So you have on-demand access where anyone can go up to the box. There's an exterior tablet, a simple key code. We're working on keyless, but it's a simple key code. You go up, you put your email, your phone number, you agree to terms and conditions, swipe a credit card, and you vend yourself time.
It's well put. Give me an example of pricing structure.
Sure. So we're at $30 an hour in increments of 15 minutes. So if I need to run in for 30 minutes, I have my plane's leaving in 30 minutes. I'm sitting there, the place is crowded, and to be honest, like, I don't want to do work. I just need 15 minutes to collect my thoughts without hearing babies or hearing, like, you know, yeah, Bobby and Gina going on vacation. Like, so I just need a few minutes. I can book it for 30 minutes, $15. And I can go in, the box comes alive, I can put it to blue and turn up the fan boost, sit back and just get myself mentally in the place that I need to be. I can also book it for 2 hours because let's say I have a podcast with you before I'm getting on a flight. I can actually book it for 2 hours for $60. So $30 an hour in increments of 15 minutes all the way through.
Very reasonable. But even the point is, for those who need this, you don't have to be all things to all people, but you are the best choice for people who have this profound need. And for those of us who travel extensively, that is the one significant deficiency is, where can I get away for a conversation? Where can I get away to make those final changes on my PowerPoint presentation, or to get somebody make the changes in that contract before I get on the flight, because we know how spotty the internet is going to be on the flight. If necessity is the mother of invention, this is a profound need, and a great answer to that.
We think that we're not trying to be everything to everyone, but we are trying to give everyone a space when they need it. And certainly work is we talk about like work from anywhere and the market kind of coming to us, because 5 years ago, our thesis about mobility is just now called work from anywhere, WFA, and we are a future of work platform. The reality though is that, while work is the main driver, you do have the space to do. I get emails of like, oh, I had a job interview and I needed a place to take it. We believe aviation and airports are the tip of the spear, but it's truly any public space. I mean, you think about universities and hospitals.
Yes.
And I mean, I can't tell you the stories we've, been personally told about someone that, they're caring for their sick mother and they're in the hospital for 3 weeks. And guess what? Like, life hasn't stopped. I mean, the fact is they still need to be able to jump on a call. They still need to be able to do work. They still need to have time for themselves, for wellness. So I think you think about, commercial building common spaces like lobbies and hospitality, and as you have this blend of, hospitality looking to convert rooms to offices and their, common space to like lounges and flex working. You have all these places to come together and do a lot of things, but you don't have privacy in any of it.
Right.
So
Unless you have
like
that corner office, which most people don't. But let's talk about the wellness part of it.
sure.
Because I don't know, the first time we talked a year and a half ago, I don't know that I understood. I mean, it almost sounded touchy-feely. Here's your place to go do yoga or whatever else, which still may be, it's just not my thing. I grant it. But
it's a little small for that, but yeah.
Yeah, right. I was thinking about you the other day because I was watching, there was some report, and there's been a lot of things about people just struggling, anxiety, and being overwhelmed, and having a space. We've all been in a public space. We've seen somebody dealing with something. They're in tears, whether they had a breakup or something else, and you want to go over and offer. And what they really want, they don't want you to go over and offer help. They want to get away, and they want time for themselves.
This was actually pointed out to us from a user, and frankly, this is a benefit of hearing other people on points of view and different voices in the room. In LaGuardia, which was our first beta, our first airport. We're still in LaGuardia, and our first one. I remember there was a user that was actually in the box, and a lot of times we go there on Thursdays and just survey people on what they used it for, how long, how much. You're like, oh, it's the person that's jumping in there before their flight because they have to change their PowerPoint. That's kind of our thought process. And this individual we went up to, and they looked upset, and we're like, oh, is anything wrong? And they just wanted a place. It's called an angry cry. They were so frustrated and so mad.
Yeah.
They just wanted a place to have 5 minutes themselves that they could just express themselves. And I think, as COVID happened, you alluded to it earlier, like last March, we were at the airport show in Denver, and we were it was pre-COVID. It was, I think, March 5th.
By a week, it was pre-COVID.
Well, everyone was doing like the COVID elbow, and
right.
I remember it pretty well. And we were very excited because we were actually just had brought our app to market. So up to that point, we were only available on demand. And our number one user request was, I want to book, reserve, extend from inside the box. I want to be able to do all these things from my phone. So we brought our app to market, and we were literally signing up airports at the show, literally doing deals. It was fantastic. And the excitement was there. A week later, we were in this global lockdown. We were, and we were like, okay, no one knew what was going to happen. I remember that you and I talked about
we knew that travel would wane.
We knew travel was not happening.
Yeah,
but we didn't know what the other side of it looked like.
Right.
And we actually at that show were debuting a virtual health partnership at that show. And wellness, when we talk about the 3 different modalities, and it's productivity, privacy, and wellness. And wellness, which I think ultimately will end up being our largest use case as we scale, is this spectrum. So on one side, because we're offering this technology-enabled privacy, set the lights, it's acoustically sound, which doesn't mean it's soundproof, but it's pretty quiet.
Right.
And you can go in there, and on one side of the spectrum, wellness is meditation, turn the lights to blue, turn the fan up, get in your space. And then it, whether you're using a meditation app or, like Brain FM, Calm, Headspace, like, all the way to, I need to speak to someone, virtual health. And because of COVID, everyone's familiar with whether it's Teledoc or MD Live.
Right.
And that's how everyone's communicating. So not only the virtual health piece from a clinical, hey, my eye's a little pink. I was in Vegas for 3 days. Am I tired, or is this pink eye? All the way to,
does this look infected? Yeah.
Is this bad? Should I go home? Or is this, or I need to, I'm feeling very anxious. And
the conversations that you want to have in private.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it comes down.
Even the airport clubs is not private. It's quieter. It's a little more exclusive. There's always some jerk in there talking at the top of their lungs, and the food options are questionable at best. That said, what's not there is privacy. And I think when you were talking about this, is what's interesting to me, sort of the unexpected utilization and the people. I mean, wellness means different things to different people.
Yep.
But I see people, and we know there's, even in the workspace, and I want to talk a little bit more also about the work environment of just give me some space for me. I just need to go just think for a second. It's the opposite of the open door policy, right? Come interrupt me at any time. I need time here.
I think open plan. I mean, my background in commercial interiors, Brian's background in design and architecture, open plan was basically 80% of the country's floor plan for the past probably decade plus, right? So that means that we're all going to be trading style. I think, you had companies like Google and Facebook and basically taking like financial day trading, like trading desks and setting them up because that's how engineers wanted to work and everything else. And you would see people just with headphones. That was like the do not disturb sign. And then you would see, literally like, so I remember seeing a desk with like basically a green circle and a red circle, kind of like a churrascaria, like I'm eating or not eating. And if the red was up, you didn't talk to the person. If the green was up, it means they're available.
Right.
And I think that creating those like collaborations and fostering serendipity is super critical and probably the role of the office in today's post-COVID world. But the reality is people still there's different types of work modes and there's different types of being modes. And sometimes you want to talk, there are times when I'm the most social person in the world. There are other times where I need to recharge and I need to recharge in order to be my best self and in order to be a good father and husband and business leader and friend. And I can't do that if I'm always on. So I think there's a sentiment around whether it's privacy or wellness or just the ability to of choice, which I think is
right.
I think ultimately that's what we're actually providing.
Talking to Jeremy Jennings, co-CEO, co-founder of Jabbrrbox. Let's talk about, so we talked about the sort of the travel environment, just somewhere to get away when you are not anywhere near a place that you're paying rent for. And instead of just like, is it okay, can I do a quick conversation, right? To be able to step into a secure, quiet, technologically equipped environment and have that private conversation of private work. Let's talk about work environment itself. When you are at your office, we know how much has changed during COVID, this work at home experiment, which will be a measure of that. There was a story on the news this morning about some pushback from organizations that are trying to get people to go back to work. But even within the working environment, we've all been in a situation where you got to have a quick conversation, a quick private thing, and you step into a conference room that with a 14-foot long conference table, and then a team of people come and say, so are you working in here? Oh, sorry, I just need a quick conversation. But I've also seen you guys are working with organizations where they've got a bank of Jabbrrboxes where anybody in that bullpen, that big wide open thing, go have a private conversation, whether it's dealing with a crisis at home because your kid can't find their retainer, or a client, or just a private conversation that has to, it's a lot cheaper alternative than building more conference rooms for organizations, isn't it?
For sure. I mean, I think what we've seen is when we first went to market, this like what we'll call the modular private space was definitely we were at the forefront of this space, and we had clients literally that our first. So maybe I'll step back real quick and give you a little further origin clarification, which will help, I think, inform this conversation. So when Brian and I wanted to bring Jabbrrbox, and basically we wanted to bring technology-enabled privacy pods to public spaces, we surveyed the market, and at the time there were still a few phone, what we'll call dumb boxes, smart box versus dumb box, or a few phone booths on the market. We actually reached out to those manufacturers and said, hey, we want to take your product. We want to take our concept, we're developing technology, booking platform, IoT, all this stuff, and integrate it and put it in public space. And what we found out then, which is still true, is there was nothing that was designed for public space, engineered with the quality, the rigidity, the life and safety, like all those things that you have to have, like doors have to close. There's a certain, you have like fire and health safety codes, all these kind of provisions. So I remember looking at Brian, like, well, I'm not really sure. What do you want to do here? Like, none of this works. He goes, let's just make our own. And he's like, I can design it, I can engineer it, I can source it. I had plenty of contacts all over the world. So that's what we did. And believe it or not, we sold our first, I think, 5 or 7 units off of a rendering to a commercial occupier. I'm not sure if I can say it on this pod. I'll say it. It's to Audible, the company owned by Amazon.
Sure.
And they were our first client, and they bought the units off a rendering. And we said they were prototypes. We said we hadn't made it. We said what we told them what our business plan was, and they're like, "Well, listen, I have this problem where I have engineers going into conference rooms, taking a 12-person conference room offline all day because they want to do work, because they need quiet space."
Yep.
Exactly what you just said. And I'm willing to buy these from you because that's how big our problem is. Like, basically without seeing them. Like, obviously we had a pretty good reputation to market, everything else. So they knew the product would be high quality. And that's what put us into business. And we actually funded the business through selling furniture. And we still today sell the product without IoT, without full technology. There are kind of options built in that we can add some technology back in. But we've essentially gone from a hardware business to really a hardware, software, SaaS business, where we look at the box as the hardware, very similar to Peloton as an analog. Like, it's not just a $2,500 stationary bike. It's a device that is really lifestyle. So that's where we are today, and we continue. Because we've had heads of corporate real estate use the boxes in public space, whether it was the merchandise mart in Chicago or an airport, and come back and say, "Hey, we want these in our office. We need the same thing. Like, I have this problem," and that's happening globally. And we get inbounds daily about how can I get this. And during COVID, it was how can I get this from my garage.
Tell me what your learning has been over the last 15 months. Clearly, we learned early on. At the same time, you saw almost a closing of transportation, which took away your client base, but you also saw a corresponding increase in the need for physical distancing and to be able to shut off. Granted, we're in a bit of a post-pandemic world now with vaccines and other things different around the world. But what was your learning during that time, and how is that going to influence the next iteration of Jabbrrbox?
I'm not just saying this because I'm on the pod with you, but one of our conversations, I think we spoke probably last April, maybe it was May. And I remember you saying something about this gift of time. And that was profoundly impactful. I'm a very positive, optimistic person by nature. This is how I am. And I had an important mentor to me tell me very early in my career that success is a choice. And I believe that everything is a choice. And I think as we saw, COVID just everything drastically, just basically the future of transportation and public, like it was like the opposite of where you wanted to go, like public space. Like, our business is public space. We're providing privacy, and the whole world is like isolated. So we really looked at it and said, well, what we've done to this point has been, we've taken a concept, an idea, we've executed, we brought it to market. We're starting to hit that product market fit. What are the obstacles to our growth? Where have we been, where are we bottlenecked? And we started looking at our model, and we started looking at, well, we believe that a global ecosystem, that this is, the Jabbrrbox solution is applicable globally. We need thousands of units out there, not 10, 20, or 100, a couple hundred. We need thousands in order to really empower people, in order to give people choice. So how do we get thousands out?
But let me ask you this: is that level of expansion gives them a choice just because there's more people that can access it, or does the ecosystem itself create opportunities for connection and collaboration? I mean, does it become the new telepresence where somebody in Singapore and somebody wherever can have a business meeting face to face because of the network?
You're getting it. You're definitely. So step one is create the utility. So in order to be utility, you have to be ubiquitous, right? So
got to be enough of them.
I come out of a meeting and I say, I'm going to Starbucks, like, oh, I need to find a Jabbrrbox because I have X, Y, and Z. Create utility. Then you can start layering on experiences on top of it that foster the behavior and empower people to have choice and options. So whether it's, I think about, as people are, the way people are working, and the instead of like, jobs are going to find talent. talent aren't, the talent is going to be looking for the jobs. The jobs are looking for the talent. So I think I can see a world where someone drops into a Jabbrrbox to do that hour and a half of work at the thing that they're so good at, that they get paid for, and then go on with their life. And then a few hours later, might need to drop in to do something else that's either career related, personally related, or maybe, and also you bring back the connectivity piece. A few years back, I think when Facebook bought the VR device,
right? Oculus.
They asked Mark Zuckerberg why he bought it and what he thought about VR. And he said, I didn't buy a product, I bought time travel. And the idea was that you can be anywhere, anytime. And I think the way that we see it is that this connected network, like everything is virtual, but there's something physical that has to happen in order to reinforce that virtual. Right. So I think that's where we really see an ecosystem. Like, I mean, that's, a few layers up from where we are today and roadmap for sure. But I think there's this physical ecosystem that if you had this enabled space that has all the tools that you need for your different modes of life, you've created this powerful network that's going to give people opportunity.
Right. Well, and here's something that, and you don't have to answer if you don't want, because there's two different ways you can go. You can go the Apple way, which is a very closed ecosystem, and you got to play ours, or you can do the open source that says, we're going to integrate with Zoom, we're going to integrate with Skype, we're going to be able to connect with other manufacturers and their pods, and this becomes the alternative to a Starbucks for, you want a conversation, but you can work at home, but you want a really good business meeting, you go drop into a Jabbrrbox. You've got all the technology you need. You've got, heck, at some point it'll be the Keurig coffee.
If anyone's listening to this, David, I didn't give you that question because it's a great, you couldn't have teed it up any better. We actually refer to ourselves as a vessel. And the reality is that we are an access point. So it is that we have integrated with Zoom, for example. So we do integrate. We are not a virtual health carrier. We are not the HIPAA compliant. We are the vessel that allows you to
facilitate the conversations.
That's it. So it's connected, consumer-enabled technology, enterprise-level software, bringing it together to bring you what you need where you need it.
To be clear, I reached out to you because I think this is so freaking cool. Eager for you to be at the Denver airport, though I will see, and I'm going to seek you out as I'm now traveling pretty extensively again, just for the opportunity. I was impressed and enamored with the product 15 months ago when I learned about it, that it is your time. And I think you're hearing that probably from your partners and your collaborators and your funders and everybody else. So I'm super excited about this. If people want to learn more about Jabbrrbox, where do they go?
Go to www.jabbrrbox.com. Remember, JABBRRBOX.com. You can find us on Twitter at Jabbrrbox, as well as follow us on Instagram at Jabbrrbox.
Outstanding. What airports are you in right now? People are looking for them.
So today we're in 7 airports, JFK, Terminal 4, LaGuardia, O'Hare, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Oakland. We have 4 additional airports deploying this month. We have 4 additional airports deploying next month. And we have over, I'll say 10 to 15 airports that will be deploying in Q3 to Q4. The demand right now is outstripping supply by far. And we're actually getting ready to hop into our next vertical, our next asset class outside of aviation. One additional thing I'll just throw on there is that as we're putting together, like really Jabbrrbox as an access point, and you mentioned this before, like as an open source system, what we're doing is creating networks. So you'll be able to use Jabbrrbox to access other spaces and other locations. We actually have a pilot right now with Staples, the national retailer. They have podcasting studios in certain locations, and you can gain access through the Jabbrrbox app to their podcasting studios. So you can book and reserve, and if you use Jabbrrbox, you actually can get it for free. And they have 7 studios, I think, around Boston. And right now we have some other partnerships that are coming online that you'll be able to, what you're going to see is, X part of the Jabbrrbox network. So imagine, so you maybe someday you might go to Starbucks, part of the Jabbrrbox network.
There you go. Listen, I am so thrilled for your success on this. I think the future is going to be big. I think people are going to look back early on and say, I remember when that all started. Jeremy Jennings, co-CEO, co-founder of Jabbrrbox. Thanks for being on the podcast here today. Let me remind you that the podcast is sponsored in part by the Customer Experience Advantage Morning Huddle. Some of the most innovative solutions to your biggest customer-facing challenges are likely found within the creative minds of your own people. Let me contribute to your Morning Huddle conversation with your team. You can learn more about membership in this powerful global initiative by visiting morninghuddlemembership.com. All of my books are on Amazon and Audible, except for my new one because it's on video series. Yeah, I've been out to the studio recording all my books for Audible. I know you worked with them as well. My new book, of course, is The Morning Huddle, powerful customer experience conversations to wake you up, shake you up, and win more business. Be sure to click to like this podcast, subscribe, leave your comments. That's always important. And click the little bell icon to receive notifications of new episodes. And you can learn more about my keynote speaking, my consulting at davidavrin.com. Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is the Customer Experience Advantage podcast. Check out past episodes, leave a comment. Big thanks to my guest, Jeremy Jennings. That's it. We'll see you next time. I'm David Avrin. Be good.
A lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Customer Experience Advantage podcast with David Avrin. Feel free to leave a comment and be sure to hit the thumbs up button. You can listen to past episodes and be notified of future ones by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. David's popular marketing and customer experience books are available in print, as well as Kindle and audiobook, and published in multiple languages around the world. You can stay connected and learn more at davidavrin.com. Thanks for tuning in.